My son, 22 male, cut contact with me, 43 female, 4 years ago due to getting involved with his friend, 22 male. He contacted me 2 days ago and wants to meet up this Friday. Original post. Note, I understand that coming on this subreddit made me open to criticism. I know. I'll be judged, but I am here to learn how to improve the situation. I had my son at the age of 21. His father passed away 2 years later, so it was me and my son against the world. When it came to my dating life, I haven't been so lucky. I did have some random hookups here and there and very short-term relationships throughout my son's childhood. In the beginning of my son's senior year, he brought a friend home, let's call him Max. He was basically at our house every other weekend. I was really happy because my son doesn't have a lot of friends. He usually keeps to himself. I really liked Max as a person. He was a real sweet guy. We had nice short conversations whenever he was at our place. We exchanged numbers just in case. He would start sending me messages and jokes. I would respond back. My son didn't mind at all. After 4 months of coming to our house, Max texts me he wants to meet up for coffee out of nowhere. I texted him if it was something urgent or about my son. He responded by saying it's something important. I was curious, so I decided to meet up with him. When I met up with him, he looked very nervous. I asked him what was the meeting about. He told me I can't tell my son about it. He then confessed to me that he was developing feelings for me. I was taken aback by this. I told him that while I was flattered, I had to think about my son. He pleaded with me just to give him a chance. It was so long that I found somebody interested in me like that. Max was already 18 when he introduced him to me, and he was a very handsome man. I said yes, but with the condition that it would only be casual dating, and my son doesn't have to know anything about it. We met up the next week at his place. I told my son I was going out with my friends. After an hour into the date, we slept with each other. Then we promised to meet up in the close future. Our meetings became very frequent, and as such, our relationship grew stronger. I was beginning to fall in love with Max. We learned more about each other. Max was becoming my main source of joy. I wanted the weekend to start early just to be with Max. It was hard for me to pay attention to anything else in my life. Looking back, it seems that my relationship with Max had a negative effect on the relationship with my son. I had to come up with different excuses on why I wasn't around. I missed out on his soccer games. I think I really messed up when I missed his birthday dinner because I was with Max. I told him that work held me up. It was a week before my son's flight to college that I got a text from Max that my son found out about us. I got it in the middle of work and I was scared to go back home. When my son arrived home, he never uttered a word about the situation. He just pretended that nothing ever happened. He seemed very cold to me, never looked at me in the eye and gave one-word responses. When it came to dropping him off, he didn't even give me a hug or even look back at me when it was time for the flight to even wave goodbye. When I drove back home, Max's car was in my driveway. It was the first time I saw him ever since I got that text from him. I saw he had a black eye and a broken nose when he stepped out of his car. We hugged each other tightly. I cried in his arms. Once we stepped into my house, I told him how bad I felt to what I did to my son. The worst part, I wasn't sad my son was leaving, but relieved instead. Max comforted me in saying he's just as much at fault for this situation. Max stayed that night. The next day he proposed to me and I accepted. It's been 4 years now. Max and I have a 2-year-old daughter. He works as a mechanic. The airport was the last time I saw my son. He blocked me on everything. I asked his grandparents if he ever contacted them. My grandfather told me that my son told them everything. He said he will take care of my son, but he told me to never contact my son or them again. 2 days ago, I got a call from my son that he's going to be in town and he wants to meet up in person this Friday. I said yes. What should I do or say when I meet him? Now for the update. Update for the few that gave me actual advice. I went to meet up with my son without Max or my daughter. It was at a local coffee shop. I found him sitting in one of the booths at the coffee shop. He was on his phone. I was really scared. A part of me wanted to tackle him with a hug and beg for his forgiveness. Another part of me wanted to leave before he noticed me. I said his name to get his attention. He didn't even leave his seat. He just looked at me and said hi. I asked if I could sit. I started asking about how he was doing. He said he was fine. I was about to apologize, but he interrupted me by saying, "Before you apologize, I want to understand how the relationship between Max and you even started." I started telling him everything. When it came to mentioning my meetups, he interjected me and started asking me questions that were difficult to answer. He asked, "So all the times that you were going out, you were lying to me about where you were going, weren't you?" I nodded. "What about the times I asked to spend time with you? Did you lie to me so that you can meet up with Max instead?" I started tearing up. It was hard being there. "Did you miss out on events to be with Max? What about my birthday?" That's when I started crying. He told me to save my tears. He said he figured that out soon after he learned about the relationship with Max. He just wanted to hear it from me. He then asked me if I was still with Max. I told him I was married to him and I have a daughter with him. He seemed to need a minute to process that. Then he started speaking. He told me he never had an issue with me dating or meeting someone. In fact, he hoped that I'd found love. He understands that I needed companionship and a type of love he couldn't offer as my son. He told me throughout all these years he felt conflicted because both Max and I were both consenting adults, and adults have a right to find happiness. My son admitted he shouldn't hate Max and was glad he didn't press charges. He said despite all of that, there were some things that he can't get over. He told me he can't get over the fact that I didn't take him into consideration when it came to pursuing the relationship. It was also hurtful to realize that I would value a romantic relationship to the point of being willing to throw away a close relationship for him for it. If I had the attitude of being done raising him and finally pursuing my own life, then that's valid according to him. However, I would have no right to want to have a close relationship with him in return. Again, that's what he said he believes. He told me he wouldn't have forgotten me when he left for college. He would have wanted me to move close to him after he got a job if he couldn't move close to me. In this ideal world, we would live close by so we could see each other even after he had a family. My son said he works as a mechanical engineer now. He is engaged to the love of his life. She was also raised by a single mom like him until she was 16, when her stepdad entered into the picture. Both of them have welcomed him into the family. He told me his future in-laws and his fiancée are his family now. He said he was getting a job near them. He finally admitted that he just wanted closure before permanently cutting me off. He told me not to contact him or his family at all. He made it clear he wouldn't be there for me at my last stage of life or even come to my funeral. He made it clear he won't even hold my hand when I pass away. I won't have the privilege of knowing his fiancée or his future kids. He made it clear that if his half-sister ever contacts him as an adult, he'll be upfront on why he doesn't want a relationship with her. He said goodbye to me and left. I cried so hard that I got the attention of the people in the coffee shop. I was crying on the way back home. I don't even know how therapy can even help. I never felt so much emotional pain in my life before. What do I do now? Story 2, TIFU by getting tested to donate a kidney to my wife plus update. Original post, I decided to get tested to see if I could donate my kidney to my wife of 6 years. We have 2 kids together, 4 female and 2 male. My kidney got sick just after our son was born and now is in need of a kidney transplant. We checked with her relatives and none were a match or a viable donor. Last week I got tested. I knew it would be a long shot, so I decided to get tested to see if I could donate. I got a call the other day saying that I was a match. The doctor then said something about wanting to do additional testing due to some information from the HLA tissue test results. I didn't think much of it and agreed. Then the results came in and I was shocked and confused. He explained that because of how DNA information is passed down through generations, a parent to a child could have at least had a 50% match. Siblings could have a 0 to 100% match. It was rare to have a high match as husband and wife. I asked, what does that mean? He said that my wife and I have an abnormally high match percentage. Long story short, we're related. No, I'm not kidding. I was put up for adoption before I was born, placed into a family that moved across the country. I knew I was adopted, but we didn't have any information about my bio family. It It was a closed adoption. I met my wife by chance 8 years ago. I was on a trip from work and she was working at the site that I went to. We worked together for a week. We exchanged numbers, kept in touch. I was sent back there 3 more times that year, and each time we became closer. I was given the opportunity to be transferred out there in a new higher paying position in a different department as hers. The rest is history. I don't know what to do moving forward, but I know it may be wrong. She is my wife and the mother of our kids. This post is probably going to get removed, but it is all true. Edit, look at the name. All of my family is from my adopted parents. My parents adopted me 2 minutes after I was born. Their name is on my birth certificate. They have not told me anything about my bio parents and don't have any info. Her family is not a match as stated above. Most of her family has low match potential or can't donate due to medical or other reasons. I am 2 years older than my wife. I do know that my wife was born when her parents were in their late teens. Now for the updates. Update 1, 2 weeks later. This is an update. The original was posted about 2 weeks ago. Yes, I know I misspelled across. Yes, I do have bad grammar and spelling. Yes, I am stressed and freaking out. Yes, I can play banjo. No, there was no genetic test when we got married. Our state dropped that back in the 1990s. No, my wife has never been stuck in the dryer, but she once got stuck under the bed. Joke. The reason I did not go into too much detail is to try not to be so specific that I or my wife might be recognized. Well, the front of the Reddit page didn't help that much. Thank you all for your comments and feedback. I didn't respond to them, but I did read all of them. The reason her family couldn't donate was that close relatives had some medical issues that prevented them from donating. Examples: high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, heavy drinkers, and more. The further that we tested, the less percentage of a match. I wanted to be tested because we needed to find someone. The doctor said it would be unlikely, but it wouldn't hurt to try. I was freaking out after I got the news and had to get outside advice. When the doc said that the percentage was abnormally high and that we might be related, I kind of zoned out and started to piece things together in my mind. My parents live 1,000 miles away. They met my in-laws a few times. Once at my wedding and when both of my children were born. My children were fine. My daughter is incredibly smart for her age. My son is a handful and healthy. The way my adoption worked was when my bio mom gave birth to me, I was checked out and put in a different room. I was there, but I don't know how it officially worked. From what my parents explained, they were in that room waiting. They never met my bio mom in person. My bio mom only had a profile and picked them out of many candidates. I called my parents and told them that I needed to know everything they knew about my bio mom. They told me that they had limited knowledge. They said that she was a single mom that was 16 years old. The father was not in the picture. Also, I was born in a hospital 1 hour from where my wife was born. Like I said, limited knowledge. Growing up, I didn't want to find out about my bio parents. To me, my parents were always my parents. I knew I was adopted and that it was a closed adoption. I figured it wouldn't matter long term. I'm not going to do an additional at-home DNA test through any of the traditional testing sites like 23 or Ancestry due to personal reasons, like the possibility of the family finding out. The doc said all of this to me only, not with my wife present. Some of the additional tests were done through the doctor, which was the CM test. I'm not an expert on DNA testing. They said it was like a 1900 plus CM match. This basically confirms one of my bio parents is one of hers. It can also mean first cousins or aunt and uncle. I'm guessing her dad. When my kids were born, my parents brought photos of me as a baby and commented that I and my son looked a lot like my wife's dad. My son was easily explainable. But all three of us are a different story. I'm not going to bring this up ever. I might look at my father-in-law differently, but nothing will hopefully change. I hope none of the family goes on Reddit and connects the dots. I am donating my kidney to my wife. We have started the full process. That takes time and a lot of preparation. I plan on talking to my wife after the surgery and after recovery. We will decide what to do with our kids, if we're going to get them tested or ever tell them. I will not be leaving my wife. I love and will always be there for her. I made vows and I will keep them. I love her more than I would a half-sister. ETA, I do plan on telling her after the surgery. She is not doing well, and I think this will be even harder in her. I would rather her know that I love her as a husband rather than flip her world upside down right before life-changing and a dangerous surgery, if something were to happen. Telling our kids is not a decision I'm going to make on my own. It will be a joint thing after my wife knows. Update 2, Part 1. Again, English is my first language, I'm just bad at it. People still think this is fake, and that is okay. It is my life, not yours. In the long term, it will only affect me, not you. Okay, first, my wife and I did go through with the transplant. We are recovering and have recovered well now. My wife is the healthiest she has been since after her son was born. My profile has all the other posts, but since I posted this on my profile, you most likely are up to date. I have tried to write this update about a gazillion times. Hopefully I can finish this one and not miss anything and try to give the details in order. This will probably be my only update. Thanks to the people who reached out and shared your personal experiences and advice with the transplant. It helped. So I kept to my original plan. I did not tell my wife about the possibility of us being related until after the surgery. Before the surgery, my parents came into town as soon as they could. It really helps having a big family support system like we have. The days leading up to the surgery seemed like there wasn't enough time in the day for everything. With 900 doctor appointments, getting things prepared for worst case scenarios, researching, setting up my parents and other family in our house to watch our kids, and just spending time together as a family. The doctors were fantastic and laid everything out in a professional but relatable fashion. They answered all the questions and concerns we had leading up to, during, and post-op. There were a lot of questions. It was one of the best feelings seeing my wife hopeful for the first time in a long time. I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I took that away from her. In the days leading up, I decided I was just going to write a letter to my wife if things went bad for me. But she survived. I wrote her 6 pages. I have small handwriting. In it, I told her how much I loved her, how much she had changed me from the moment that we met, how she was my universe, but also how sorry I was for keeping a secret from her and lying to her. Went into details about how I found out over the last week, how we might be related and all the evidence. I gave it to my parents to give to her if something were to happen to me. But if we both didn't make it, then read it to my in-laws. I also made other letters. The surgery went well for both of us. They said my organ looked mighty fine. The transplant worked out rather quickly for my wife and her body accepted it. I ended up scratching my eye pretty bad and they put an eye patch on me. So, when I saw my wife for the first time, her words to me were, "The doctors knew we were here for the kidney, right?" Recovery overall sucks. There was virtually no position that was comfortable. Shout out to the person or persons who recommended sleeping in a recliner, using stuffed animals my kids picked out as comfortable pillows, and more. I felt like a baby because my wife never complained and was healing well and taking it easy. Me, on the other hand, am not so smart and decided I should go against doctor's orders and did not take it easy and ended up having to go to the ER and have secondary surgery to repair damages I caused. Please listen to your medical professionals. Update 2, Part 2. Now on to what y'all really care about during recovery. My wife got into TikTok and Reddit. Well, after a time, she found a little post that made it way bigger than I ever intended. Looking back, I should have been more careful. Thanks for all the interaction and thanks to the ladies at 2 Hot Takes. My wife loves you guys. During this time, she started to ask more in-depth questions about my adoption. My parents were still at the house at this point. Parents answered all questions. My wife used the excuse of wanting to put a memory book together for our kids and wanted to include a family history of us growing up and including our parents who raised us. She knew most of this info but wanted more details. She asked her dad about more details of his childhood, how he met my mother-in-law, if my mother-in-law was his first relationship. She knew some, but I was learning a lot. Also, as a reminder, my wife was born when her parents were older teens. I'm older than her. He said no mother-in-law was not in his first relationship. We ended up pulling out his old yearbooks from his high school, and he showed us the girl who was his first real relationship. I knew she, probably my bio mom, I could see features that I have in her. He told us fond memories he had of her. He said their relationship ended because of her parents, and he never saw her again. He tried finding out what had happened to her but couldn't before the internet. Shortly after that, he asked out my mother-in-law, and here we are. We got my father-in-law's side, then my mother-in-law said, "Now let me tell you how it really happened." Proceeded to tell us a different story that was more believable. Nothing about all this was a red flag indicating that my wife knew my secret, but after that visit I felt extremely guilty. She was healthier than she had been in years, out of the major danger zone, so I had no real excuse not to tell her anymore. It took me 2 additional weeks to finally tell her. She noticed I was acting off and finally asked me if I was okay. I said I needed to talk to her about something serious, possibly life-altering and potentially a relationship-ending topic, but that I love her and will do absolutely everything she decided from that point forward. She told me that was not a good start to a conversation and asked if I wanted to try again. So I gave her the letter I had written before the surgery. She went from curious, happy, crying, intense concentration, unreadable. In my head, I basically handed her divorce papers. I would never see her or my kids again. Our life that we had built just got nuked. I'm dramatic in my head. When I get nervous, I pace back and forth. When she finished reading it, she took a moment, then came over to me, stopped me from pacing, said to look at her, smiled with a genuine smile and said, "You are the dumbest smart person I know," and then kissed me. This started a long conversation. She came across my first post after the surgery and found it oddly specific to our situation. Even though I changed some facts and circumstances, she connected the dots. This started her trying to find out if it was true, if I would eventually tell her or continue to lie or hide it from her. She reassured me that it changed nothing relationship. She is my wife, I am her husband. She will always have a piece of me with her at all times. She said, like a bunch of comments, that she doesn't view it as wrong because we did not grow up together, we didn't know, and it was a bit too late to back out now. We decided to have our kids do genetic testing when they are more age appropriate, mainly for the unknown for me being adopted. We are not, for now, possibly ever telling anyone. We also took up who we now suspect is my bio mom. What we found out is that she ended up passing a few years ago due to a drunk driver. Don't drink and drive. But I possibly have 2 other half-sisters. So I have dating options down the road if needed. Wife hit me when I told her this. Kids are doing pretty well, and they all know is that mommy is doing better and enjoying spending more time with her and the extra energy and playfulness that she hasn't had in a while. They are doing really well. So all in all, the best case scenario happened. The only things that I would change is if the doctors tell you to take it easy and give you proper medical advice, follow it. Also, if you're keeping a secret from your wife or significant other, don't. They probably know already and is just letting you keep digging the hole deeper. My wife and I are doing really well. We are probably the closest we have been in a long time. I asked her to marry me again. She said that she would think about it, pause for like 5 long seconds, and of course, yes, I will marry you. I'm not as afraid as I was about family finding out or seeing this post. I now have a goddess-like force to have my back if I or we ever get questioned. We have made contingency plans. Like I said, I probably won't update again. I thank you all. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.